Welcome to Powering Through Life on the Divas That Care Network. I'm your host, Teresa Sims, and I'm a transformational life coach, author, and speaker. And each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I discuss a special topic that is close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they've faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their lives. Today, my guest is someone very special to me. She's turned out to be a nice, dear friend of mine, and her name is Stacey Maynard. And Stacey is an award-winning entrepreneur and leading expert in LinkedIn training. Stacey has been helping organizations, entrepreneurs, and brands for over 20 years. And she works with corporate teams and entrepreneurs alike, and to make their LinkedIn strategy work for their business, brand, and the bottom line. Stacey's passionate about educating and training LinkedIn, along with training others to be LinkedIn trainers so they can help their clients leverage the power of LinkedIn. So Stacey, welcome to Powering Through Life. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a great introduction. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this too, and we've been trying to get together for a bit, and sometimes life throws us challenges, and we just kind of make it work when we can, right?
Well, I think that rolling through, right, and not getting upset that things change, but understanding that it'll happen when the moment is right. And today the moment is right, and we're able to chat. So that's perfect.
Exactly. So can you tell me why you went with LinkedIn? I mean, LinkedIn is a big... Well, describe LinkedIn for us first. How's that?
Well, LinkedIn is the professional platform. So people are in a business mindset when they're there. So I guess the reason why, and not to put down all of the other platforms, they're super fun. They're not as, and LinkedIn's not as sexy as something like Facebook or Instagram or something like that. But I think what I like is the fact that it's business focused. So we don't get muddled with all of the other stuff when we're on that particular platform, like cat videos and what people had for lunch and all of this kind of other stuff that people put out there on social media. You have to sift through all of that stuff to get to the business side. And I find that I will admit that I get shiny object syndrome quite frequently. And, I'm reading something and squirrel, and 2 hours later I'm still looking through and go, what was I doing here again? So with LinkedIn, I find I can stay focused and I know what I'm doing there. I'm connecting with other professionals, both that I know and I don't know, and I get to know through that platform. So I really like the way it's structured and how it helps build relationships versus some of the other platforms where it's more of a one-way communication.
Exactly. And I know we're all not guilty, but we've all fallen into the shiny object syndrome thing at one point in time, right? And I know LinkedIn is completely different than the other various social media aspects because it is business oriented and it's more professional, and there's so many people from all over the world as well, but groups that are focused solely on business, certain types of business, certain aspects of business that you can join and be part of and contribute to, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? It was kind of also an odd conversation when my business coach said to me, what's your favorite social media platform? And I went, well, LinkedIn, and here's why. And I gave her all of those reasons. And she goes, well, why aren't you just focusing on that one? Because I used to do all the other social media as well. I used to be more of a generalist. And I went, I don't know, why not? So sometimes when it takes somebody else's point of view to look at your situation and sort of ask you those questions, and you go, I don't know why I'm not just focusing on that. That's a great idea. I should go down that road, and I'm very glad that I did. So I think sometimes it just takes that external person to look at what you're doing and not have you. I said, yeah, but I can make more money by doing all of this other stuff kind of thing. And it's actually the opposite. And I think that's kind of the fear that people have with defining what they do in a more specific way, is they feel like they're giving up so much more. But actually, when you define what you do and you're more specific, it actually helps bring in, because people understand what you do. I'm known as the LinkedIn girl, so they know what I do, that I don't have to explain everything that I do and all of these other services. I'm very specific. So it's a really cool way.
So it's like finding your niche market and then focusing in on that and being laser focused
Exactly.
rather than trying to do everything. You're focusing on one aspect where you can put, and it's not necessarily like another cliche, putting all your eggs in one basket, but it's really just concentrating on where you'll get the most bang for your buck, right?
Yeah, and where your expertise lies and where you can help the most people.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and not putting all your eggs in one basket. I use that analogy quite often. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So how many would you say people are involved in LinkedIn? I can't remember the numbers. I mean, they change all the time, but I mean,
they do. The most recent statistic is 650 million people.
Wow, that's a pretty big audience.
That's a pretty big audience. Yeah, it's growing and growing. I think more people are realizing that that's kind of the place to be, because I know a lot of people are frustrated with some of the other networks. So I'm definitely seeing, I would say in a year, it's grown from 500 million to 650 million, which is crazy.
Wow, that's
in a very short period of time. Yeah.
Right. And it's not just entrepreneurs. It's any type of business professional person.
Exactly.
Or any type. I mean, I even get students that are trying to connect with me from former colleges or universities that, I've attended. So it's a growing
and
network.
Know what? Literally this morning, I had a friend reach out to me, and her daughter, who is 15, I think, it was recommended for her daughter to have a LinkedIn profile, and she's only 15. And I was really surprised by that. And I said, well, how much information does she really have at 15 to put on a profile? But she's asked me to help her out to set it up more as a student profile. So, every day there's more and more people going on. So I guess it doesn't matter what age you are. You can be 15 or you can be 60. It doesn't matter what age you are. You're still on LinkedIn, which is really cool.
And that's the best part about it, right? It's not going to it's for anybody. So tell us why you got into working with social media in the first place, Stacey. Kind of curious about your story.
Well, I used to, be that corporate person. I was working downtown Toronto in this amazing company that I envisioned I would stay with pretty much the rest of my life. Like, I loved the company that much. I enjoyed my boss. I liked the culture. I liked the people I was working with. And I actually really liked my job, like even the tasks of my job, even though there were days that it was stressful. But I did that. I worked in marketing. I worked in branding. I worked in sales. I was kind of this awesome trifecta in between all of them to help out all the different departments and stuff like that. So it was actually a really cool job. And then my son was diagnosed with autism. So I tried, and God loved the company that I worked with. They tried really, really hard to work with me, to have me work part-time, to work more from home, to be able to care for him, give me more flexibility to go to his various appointments. Unfortunately, it got to the point that the job really did need to be full-time, and I recognized that as well. I wasn't able to give as much as I wanted to the company. So I needed to end that career, and then I was home with him because no one was willing to hire somebody under the circumstances of, well, I don't know when I can work. I don't know tomorrow if I'm going to be available because I'm not really sure what kind of night he's going to have. And I don't know when his appointments are going to be because they're here, there, and everywhere. But if you can just allow me to stop by every once in a while and do some work and pay me, that would be great. No.
It doesn't always work that way, does it? No.
It did not work like that at all. If
you can find that, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that would be really interested in getting that job as well. So
right? Because, wouldn't it be great?
Oh, yeah.
So unfortunately, and with the enormous amount of therapies that he had to go through, we had 5 or 6 different therapists at different times, different appointments and stuff like that. I literally, he was diagnosed at the age of 2, and I joke that I threw the book at him. So I just did everything in my power. And unfortunately, that comes with a very high price tag. So it wasn't like I could not work. I still had to work. I just needed to find something to do. And I started to, in the middle of all of this, unfortunately, in the world of autism and in the world of being a parent with a child who you can't necessarily go out to all these different mommy groups and play dates and all of this kind of stuff because your child's a little bit more challenging, that it did leave a lot of alone time. And alone time meant that I literally would open my computer and I would get to know the people who lived inside my computer, because those are the people that I got to know, and those are the people I'm reaching out to at, sometimes 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or during the day when I was able to have a few minutes. I thank God for social media every day, because it enabled me to connect with other parents through different groups. It enabled me to connect with other businesses through different questions and their Facebook pages. Facebook was mainly at that time probably the most common one that I was associated with at the time. And I got to know people, and it was amazing. So then I realized that there was something to this social media thing, and taking my experience there along with my sales and marketing and branding and all of that stuff that I'd done in corporate, I decided that I would start a business, and hopefully I could continue along, and it worked. I was able to put myself out there. I was able to control the types of meetings that I went to, and when I went to them. I started networking and going and getting out there, and which was amazing, not only for my business, but just for my own personal development. Getting back out there into the world of communicating with humans and people face to face and all that kind of stuff, because you realize I felt like a new mom again, because when you're a new mom, you feel very isolated. So I felt that way. So I was able to get out there, and the rest, they say, is history.
Oh, that's fantastic. What an incredible story. And so you found a way to reinvent yourself using what you had, what you knew, and filling a niche, filling a need in the industry at the same time.
Pretty much, yeah, because I had that knowledge, and I think one of the things that I quickly realized was that people didn't have that knowledge. So they were wanting to start a business, or they were wanting to create themselves or something, but they didn't understand sort of the bigger picture when it came to, use of even like little things like use of logos, or how to present yourself in a business way, or some of the general marketing things and consistencies and what these things look like. And it was just all of the stuff that I had a lot of knowledge of, that a lot of beginning starter entrepreneurs didn't have. And now, as my business has progressed, I don't typically work with startup companies in the beginning, but now I work really well with different marketing teams and stuff like that, because I have that background, which has been really cool, that I didn't know what it would turn into in the beginning. I just knew at the time I needed to make money. Right. And that was, I needed the flexibility, because the top priority for me was to take care of my son.
Obviously.
And I didn't care about anything else. Yeah.
Right. So it's incredible what we can create and what manifests itself out of necessity and need. And, when we just take ourselves out of the, scarcity aspect of it, and we just focus on what the mission is, what we need to do, and how can we make it happen, incredible things can manifest themselves.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we end up in a world of questioning ourselves because it's something that you want to do. But when you're driven from a different place, like I was driven from a different place, I needed to succeed. It wasn't an option. I didn't have a fallback plan. Yes, my husband worked, and he had a very good job, but it still didn't cover what we needed to cover in regards to our own financial expenses from our house, as well as his therapy. So when you have to, and you don't have an option to fail, you will find a way to succeed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, I think, the biggest challenge. Is unfortunately, I have met a lot of entrepreneurs who it doesn't matter if they fail or succeed, because they do have that financial fallback, and they don't have the drive. They just know they want to do it. And that's all good. And I'm happy for them. And if they can make it work, and it's making them happy, amazing. Mm-hmm. It just, when it comes from a different place of that need, and there's no other option, it's different.
It is, and it's totally different between want and need and actually being a parent or not being a parent, right? And your children become your priority, and I imagine your son needed a lot of help. And did you manage to get the help you needed to get you through all of that as well?
In a very weird way. So I actually, I think we were talking before we hit record that we actually thank goodness for some of the things that have happened to us. And I actually thank him because I am a different person than I would have been had he not gone through this, because I learned that I had more strength in me than I could ever thought that I had.
Mm-hmm.
I learned I had more ability to advocate for him, that I no longer cared what people thought of me. I wasn't embarrassed anymore by different things that were happening. I wasn't embarrassed by him having a meltdown in the middle of the grocery store. It's amazing how you no longer want to cover that stuff up, and you just look at people going, this is your problem. This isn't my problem. So I kind of take that driving force. And so when I talk to people about some of the fears that they have around putting themselves out there and putting themselves online, and they're worried about what other people are going to think, I tell them that story. It's like, you know what? When it comes from a place with your kid, you don't care what other people think. It changes who you are. So did I get the support that I needed? I did immerse myself into various parent support groups because I did want to make sure that I was supported. But I think the growth that I experienced through entrepreneurship, as well as through the networking and having to put myself out there, because again, I didn't have a choice, helped me grow in a different way than just having the support that I needed.
Absolutely. Now, do you find that when people react or reacted, to your son having a meltdown in the store, that it's not necessarily it's their reaction, it's how they're reacting to it? It's got nothing to do with your son. It's got nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. It's that person's issue as to how they choose to react to your son having his meltdown.
Yeah, and I didn't care. I didn't hurry it along. I didn't make excuses for him. I didn't make them feel better.
Right.
Because I didn't feel like in the moment that was my job.
Exactly. Because
it really should have. It's not about them, and I didn't care if they were uncomfortable. All I cared was if my son was okay and how he was able to function, and I was able to use the tools that I learned to help him through that process, to get him out the store and to get him home very safely and in the best way that I knew how, and I didn't care about their feelings. Exactly. And I think that was the big piece that I learned about myself and that I didn't know I had in me. Mm-hmm. Because I admit, as with everybody, I look back on my past and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I did make decisions based on maybe what I thought other people would think or their opinion. And I now, it's not that I don't care about other people, absolutely, but I know that I have the confidence to put myself out there in a way that's going to make sense to a lot of people, but there are going to be people out there that are not going to like me, and I'm okay with that.
Well, and you know what? That's their choice, isn't it?
And
not
it has
everybody.
Nothing to do with
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I love getting to know other people, and I think this is always the most interesting things. I love getting to know other people that do the same thing as me. So if I meet somebody at a networking event and I hear that they're involved with LinkedIn or social media, I'm immediately the first one over there going, hi, I need to talk to you. I love getting to, because I don't believe in competition. I'm all about collaboration, and I'm all about getting to know that other person, because if you don't want to work with me or I'm not a good fit for you, then I want to refer you to the person who I think is also awesome at what they do. I just want to make sure that, that person gets the best out of whoever they need to work with.
Exactly. There's so many people in this world, and if we have to fight each other for one client, that's a bit ridiculous. There are enough people to go around. We don't need to be in competition with anyone else.
No,
exactly.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
no,
I think the way you do, it's a fit thing, and if, who may fit with me may not work with you, or who may fit best with you, and I'm trying to work with them, if, and I'm at a point like you, if I feel that I can't do justice to that individual, I will give them your name and say, hey, you need to go see this person because I think she'll be dynamite for you.
Absolutely. And you know what? I just think that's integrity. I think that's having the person's honest to goodness, want them to be happy, and that's all you're thinking about, instead of trying to make it all about you, going, oh, but I don't want to lose this client. Do what's right for them. And I think when you do that, it just shows the type of person that you are. And I think that's really cool.
And do you find that it's because of what you've gone through in your life with your life and your son's that you're at this place now, or do you think it would have been the same way before?
Oh, it definitely would not have been the same way. It's definitely because of what I've gone through with him 100%. He's just, you know what, I think it's also what he's taught me, because when you watch somebody to go from nonverbal, not being able to speak a word, trying their hardest to communicate. I mean, there was moments where, you know, he would walk over and try to point to what he wanted because he just didn't have a voice. So being able to see that struggle and frustration to constantly going through therapy, and finally learning how to say those first words much later in life than a typical child. And then they finally begin to talk, and you finally be able to communicate with them, and seeing that never give up attitude. How can you give up?
Yeah.
How can you just say, I'm too tired, or no, I'm not going to do this. It's not worth my time.
Right.
You just don't. And I watched him push and push and push and never give up, literally. And he still has that same attitude today, which is really cool. When he wants to do something, I see him practice and practice and practice and go for it, and you know, he still has that drive to know what it's like to fight for something that you want and never give up until you get it right.
Oh,
and
that's
it's fun to watch. So I learned that from him.
So you had a really awesome role model.
I had a fantastic role model. So I think one of my favorite quotes is, success is not about what you achieve in life, it's what you inspire others to do.
Oh,
so I say my son is successful at the age of 2 because he inspired me to be more than I ever thought I could be, which is really cool.
That is fantastic. And how old is he now?
He's 13, and he's very 13.
Going on 25?
Well, we're hoping he'll make it to 14. So he's very much a teenager and embracing all that is a teenager. So he is a very typical 13. That's all. Very
that's wonderful.
Teenager. And I wouldn't have it any other way. He's extremely verbal, so always be careful what you ask for. He's extremely verbal today and is doing great. So I would I have done anything differently? No. I don't know what my life would have been like, but I don't care.
Right.
Because I'm very happy with the way things are going, and he's doing amazing because of it. So, yeah, there was a lot of challenges along the way, for sure. I have about 1 million stories. But I don't think, again, it's just his attitude and what I've been able to pull out of myself because of it. And it's that advocacy piece for somebody else. I think it's, you know, whether it's your health that you're going through, whether it's, you know, helping somebody else understand maybe what you've been through, or being part of somebody else's journey and how that's impacted you, like in my case, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Right. And sharing it and creating information for others when they're really ready to listen, being that advocate so that they can have a voice, teaching other people so that they can learn and see and make conscious decisions. That's what it's all about. It's being there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I tell people my story about my kid and how he learned how to have a voice, and they tell me that they're scared to put something online, I give them that story, and I'm like, if he can do it, you can do it.
Absolutely. And, you know, as long as you're not posting anything really, really inappropriate online, which you shouldn't do anyway,
exactly.
You know, step out of your comfort zone a little bit and take a chance, because you never know what can happen.
Well, and I think people, and I know you and I have had this conversation a couple of times about how your story can really be have a positive impact on somebody else, because maybe they're going through something similar, or maybe they're just going through something completely different. But to hear that you survived and that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that, you know, all of the changes and all of the craziness that they're going through is worth it, really motivates them to keep going. So I think it's really important to continue to tell these stories, which is why I'm so glad that you've created a platform where people can tell these stories and get those messages out, instead of feeling maybe like they should be hiding behind something, or they are I don't know, maybe embarrassed to tell them because there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Absolutely not, because whatever you think or whatever you're going through, there is always at least one other person on this earth that's going through something similar, if not the same thing. So,
Absolutely.
By talking about it, and this was my whole idea too, was by talking about it, talking about our challenges in our lives and what we've gone through and how we developed and grew through it, we can share that with somebody else. One other person may hear it and become inspired, and that's all they need to break through whatever it is they're fighting with.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said right in the beginning, that's how I received my motivation and my connections from people who I joke who live in my computer, because they were the ones who guided me. They were the ones that were there for me. They were the ones that were there at weird hours of the day when I had a question or was just feeling frustrated. Mm-hmm. So I think we all need to build that community, whether it's people that we either listen to, follow, connect with, or build relationships with. I think we all need to find that place that we can go to or listen to, like I said, that can help us get through what we're going through.
Absolutely. And, it's kind of ironic. Well, not ironic, but it's a good thing. Before we got on the call, I was actually listening to Brene Brown's TED Talks on vulnerability and shame. So
she's an incredible person to listen to.
Absolutely. And she was actually one of the catalysts for my initial step up and change after my car accident. So that's, knowing that you're okay, and it's okay today. It may not be okay tomorrow, but the day after it will be fine. And we don't have to own that shame because that's not who we are.
Exactly.
It's okay to be vulnerable because, you know what? It's all part of being human. We forget that.
What a concept. Being human.
Go figure. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, Stacey, what's one thing that you would tell people that they can do on LinkedIn to make a huge impact in their success and the success of their business?
I would say the one thing that makes the biggest difference and the biggest everything is to use it. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but take action, because it's one thing just to kind of put some stuff on your profile and connect with people once in a blue moon, but nobody uses LinkedIn. Nobody goes in and puts stuff out there. So use it, post, and actually use your voice to put yourself out there and get outside of your comfort zone a little bit, because if my son can do it, so can you.
That's true. That's true. Now, what would the first action step be besides using it? I mean, obviously you create a profile, but what would you suggest would be the one first step?
I would say the one thing that most people leave out of their profile specifically is that top banner piece. So we call it a header. You can call it a banner, but basically it's a visual piece of real estate that's underused. It gives you the ability to brand yourself. It gives people the ability to see who you are, sort of what your business is or who you are, because it's not necessarily just for entrepreneurs, but it could be you as a business person. It could be you in your professional environment. Whatever that case is, I literally see that first. So when I see that, I should know a little bit about who you are without even having to read anything. So that's the piece I think that people leave off the most. They go into sort of that resume world and they go down to the experience section, write all that stuff in, and then they kind of walk away and they go, okay, I'm done. And I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
So that header image is probably one of the most important pieces that a lot of people leave out of their profile. So I would suggest that would be job one, is to see if you have anything there. And if it's blank, put something there.
Right. And I always struggle with the measurements on that banner. So I need to relook at it.
They change. There are, if you just Google dimensions for header image, they are updated on a regular basis. There are sites, and LinkedIn has them updated as well. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but I do know they change them frequently. And I've had to even fiddle with it a few times myself, and with the sizing of different images and stuff. So that's not my favorite thing to do on LinkedIn. I love creating the images, but sometimes the sizing of it even gets me.
Well, you know what? That's just proof that we need to go in frequently and keep an eye on things and manage. right? You can't just
and make
put it
sure
there
that it's still relevant. I know a lot of things change in people's lives, and jobs change, or maybe a slight change in their branding or how they position themselves. I know too, even with myself, I think a year ago I decided that I wanted to change the color of my logo from green to yellow. Mm-hmm. And I went back into my LinkedIn profile a few months later because I'm the shoekeeper's shoes. And so I went into my own profile, and there's all of my old logos and all my old branding. And I went, oh, wait a minute, I have some updating to do. So I quickly went through and started making those changes. So even, I think just we need to look at it on a regular basis to make sure that it's still fitting, still current, and everything still works.
Right. So how often would you suggest? Like daily, twice a day, weekly? What do you think? Someone with a LinkedIn
profile? Well, once your
profile's
done, you really don't have to look at your profile that often. Okay. Once a month is fine, just to make sure. Unless something major has changed, then obviously you want to go in and make sure that profile is updated. But using LinkedIn, posting, connecting, I think you should be logging in and doing something once a day.
Okay, good information.
Yeah.
Good information. That way it keeps you kind of in people's minds and in front of them, and they can see you, and you have a presence, right?
Exactly. And it's just habit forming as well. So you're not necessarily doing the same thing every day, but you're understanding that it's a tool that you can use to grow your personal brand, grow your professional brand, grow your business, be in front of people so that they know who you are, and build those relationships, which is really important.
Well, that's what it's all about, too, is relationship building. It's not just networking. It's building relationships so that people can recommend and refer one another, like we were talking about FIT.
Exactly.
We need to develop those relationships. So, Stacey, I want to thank you so much for sharing what you shared with us today. You are such an empowering person, and I love hearing your stories because you tell them so well. And I like hearing the stories about your son because, you know what, it inspires me as well. He's an awesome guy.
Oh, thank you.
And someday I'm going to meet him. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'll have to bring him around. I always I talk about him a lot, but people don't. I always kind of keep him on the sidelines, so I'll have to bring him out one of these days.
Wonderful. Sounds great. Well, is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with? A statement that you'd like to share with them, or a favorite quote again, or what would you think?
Well, I think one of my favorite quotes, I actually had, I don't know if you put this in your notes or anything like this, but one of my absolute favorite quotes of all time is, do not go where the path may lead, go instead where there's no path and leave a trail. And that is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I just love that quote because I think so many people try to follow others in what they're doing. And I will fully admit that I did that. In the very beginning of my career, I looked at the leaders and what they were doing in regards to social media, and I go, well, if they're doing it and it works, I'll do it too. And it didn't work. And I quickly had to realize that although you're doing something similar, you have to do it in your own way because nobody else can do it your way. So you do have to go where there's no path and leave that trail.
Great information. And yes, I will include that quote when we post your graphic on the Divas That Care Network and all of our social media that we're going to be sharing your segment with. So, Stacey, thanks. I appreciate this so much, and I look forward to our time together again when we can get together and network, to build relationships, and keep going with our futures.
Great. Thanks so much, Teresa.
You're very welcome. So, Divas, that brings to a close another great, inspiring, and fun interview on Powering Through Life. I'd like to thank my incredible guest, Stacey Maynard, for sharing her thoughts and wisdoms with our listeners today. And, Divas, we will have all of Stacey's contact information posted on her segment, so you can go to www.divasthatcare.com, click on my picture, that's Teresa Sims, and all of the guests that have been on my segment will be listed, and Stacey's will be at the top. So please get in touch with Stacey if you need some LinkedIn help, assistance, and if you just want to connect with her based on the autism aspect as well, right, Stacey? You'd be happy to talk to people about that as well?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So thanks again, Divas, and we will talk to you again soon.